and welcome to the podcast, Living Uncertain. This podcast is dedicated to obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, and the primary treatment, exposure response prevention, ERP. OCD comes in many forms, such as contamination, perfectionism, checking, harm, superstitious, religious or moral, sexual orientation, and/or relationship. ERP is the gold standard to treating OCD, and it focuses on deliberately confronting fears, the exposure, while refraining from compulsive rituals, the response prevention. With repeated exposures and without engaging in compulsions, we learn to tolerate anxiety and break the cycle of intrusive thoughts. We are a married couple that have faced both the challenges of OCD and the incredible healing that ERP can provide to your marriage, family, and your home. As a person who lives with OCD, I am much more than this diagnosis. We all can be. Hey y'all, I'm Stacee, and along with my husband Marc, we want to thank you for living uncertain with us. We appreciate you joining us for another episode of our podcast. Of course, as you all know, this is the podcast that talks all things OCD and ERP related, and welcome to episode 21, where we have some bits and baubles to talk about today during today's episode. And one being that it is our first episode post our week-long trip that we just got back from. And there was some ERP performed on that trip and some interesting things to share as far as how it relates to our journey, and wanting to talk about a few other little things along the way. So thank you for joining us.
Welcome. So this was probably the most enjoyable trip that I have had.
As have I.
And I think a lot of it was because of all the ERP that you've been through.
Yes.
Because in past trips, your OCD would get in the way of any type of fun.
Yes. It's a fun stealer. It's a fun thief as well.
Yes.
Amongst thieving other things too. But before we get too involved, both Marc and I want to take a second to thank everyone who listened to last week's episode in particular, as our daughter shared her story. So thank you all for listening. And we're so proud of her being able to be that brave to share some of the struggles that she's had with her own OCD and what it looks like and what she's doing now in terms of her own journey through ERP to help.
Yes. And today is actually her birthday.
It is. So happy birthday, Avery.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was a big deal for her to share, how your OCD and your ERP has impacted her, but also her own OCD that she has.
Yes.
And how she's working through it still.
Yes.
And during our trip were some moments that we had to practice some ERP that she didn't necessarily know that we were doing. You know, we were in San Francisco down on Pier 39. It's very crowded, which she struggles with the crowds. And we had to continue to expose her to those crowds in order for her anxiety to go up and come back down.
Yep.
And there were times where I definitely noticed where her anxiety was up higher. Like she could not necessarily enjoy the sea lions as much as I think because her anxiety and her OCD was kicking pretty high.
And so we had to watch her have those moments where her anxiety would get up and then come back down, and monitor her to make sure she wasn't performing any compulsions, because she tends to perform some physical ones as well as mental in order to help her navigate those kinds of situations. But I do commend her to one of the things that she said last week that I really enjoyed listening to her say, was that she felt very fortunate that she was taking on this journey as early as she is, so that she can have much more success earlier in her life. And that was very poignant for me, knowing that it has taken me somewhat longer in my life to get my diagnosis and to go on the ERP journey. So I'm very happy too that she's able to do so earlier, so that she's not struggling as much.
Well, and I think it helps that, you know, knowing that OCD can be a familial component, and our therapist recognized that in her.
Yes.
And we went through and did the screening with her and found the different areas that she deals with as far as the OCD, her compulsions that she has.
Yes.
She does mental rumination, she's got some religious OCD in there and, different little facets that we're learning as she's recognizing herself, what could be an OCD piece versus just regular life too. She's learning more about herself.
Exactly.
And that's that educational piece right now that she's going through. I was going to say,
she's really embracing the psychoeducational piece of it and really getting a lot out of that. And then therefore we're getting more out of that piece because we're going back through it with her and really remembering and learning new things about the education of OCD and what it can look like and how incredibly different it can look person to person, even though we are family. Her OCD presents much differently than mine does. And so that means that ERP looks just a little bit differently. But then the end result is the ultimate goal, which is to struggle less.
A little bit more freedom.
And I agree with Mark. I agree with you, babe. I think this was the most enjoyable vacation we've ever had. I think I felt different. I feel different most days, and this was no different that I woke up every day feeling good about what we were doing and excited about what we were doing instead of feeling anxious or nervous or unsure. I was ready to embrace the things I hadn't done before or hadn't seen before versus prior trips where I would get very caught up in not wanting to have anything to do with that because it took me out of the safety zone. It took me out of the comfort of where I was. And I didn't want to do anything that made me feel uncertain or uncomfortable. And now I embrace that more. So,
one thing that could have really tripped you up is that Miles stayed home. So it was just the three of us on the trip. He stayed home to work and take care of the animals because he was off to DC before we got back from our trip. So that could have been in the past, I know that would have been something that probably was not allowed.
No, we wouldn't have taken,
The trip would not have happened, or if it did happen, you would have been so wrapped up with him being at home that you wouldn't be able to enjoy the moment.
Right. So again, as I've kind of alluded to or spoken very directly about in previous episodes, I have an intrusive thought that gets to me in relation to our kids because I also have intrusive thoughts surrounding death. And that intrusive thought being, if my kids are out of my sight, they're
dead.
Are dead. They will die. And so therefore I can never let them out of my sight. I have to check on them constantly. I have to check with you, babe, in order to make sure that everything is okay and they're all right. And so that was a big deal for me on this particular trip because of all the ERP I've already been through, it was much easier to leave him at home. And of course, as normal parents would, we checked in with him along the way. We made sure he was okay. He checked in with us, etc., as normal would be. Yep. It didn't have to go beyond that. And I never felt my anxiety raise, in particular to Miles being at home. I didn't feel it wasn't, I maintained the ability to stay present. I embraced the uncertainty. I embraced the unknown. And that's something that I've never been able to do because also the intrusive thought is, well, if it's unknown, then I'll get hurt or I'll die or something will happen. And so that took a lot of time for me to navigate that. But now that I have, it was an incredibly enjoyable trip. And I even did the same ERP with Ave.
Yep. So there was a couple of nights that the first stop that we did, we stopped at Santa Monica Pier and walked around there and there's the amusement park that's, at the pier, and Avery wanted you to go on the roller coaster ride, which I think was a first to go on a roller coaster ride with just you and her.
Well, yeah, because roller coasters also mean
death.
Say it with me, everyone. Because it's a new experience or because it's something that can be somewhat unsafe. If I get on there, I will die or she will die or something will happen.
So then after the roller coaster ride, she wanted to go and do, I don't even know what you call the thing that goes up really fast and drops,
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want to do this. She wanted to do it. So she went on by herself.
She did.
And she went out of your sight.
She did.
And I had told her, we'll meet you outside the gate,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to be down there till we can watch you go up and down, up and down, up and down, which we had to leave the confined area.
Mm-hmm. Which we did. And then we could put eyes on her.
Yeah.
And we could see her going on the ride and back down. But then I had to sit in my discomfort while we sat just outside of the park arena, like you mentioned, and wait for her to come back to us.
Well, and there's a couple pieces to that. First of all, she didn't have her phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had it.
Yes.
And I mean, you did ask me a couple times, is she going to be able to find us? And I always had to reply with,
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd be, funny and say no.
Yeah, that's not funny. Not funny.
But at this point in your ERP,
yes,
the no,
100%, yeah,
is something I can get away with.
Yes, you can. And I did feel in that moment when she wasn't with us and I was waiting for her to return to us, I did feel my anxiety go up. And I could feel when we talk about levels of anxiety too, and the term SUDS in terms of how far do you, scale of 1 to 10, how far did your anxiety go up before it would come back down without engaging in the compulsion? And even though I tried to engage in a compulsion, Marc didn't let me get away with that. And so I had to sit in that uncomfortability. And I would say at that time, my anxiety had reached a good level, maybe 7 or 8, because I couldn't see her and I was anticipating her coming around one corner when she actually came around a different corner. And I think that was the first moment where I went, uh-oh, what are we doing here? Was this really a good idea? And then after she came back, I thought, oh, okay. And I didn't.
Well, you knew she was safe at that point because
yes.
you laid eyes on her.
Yes. And I knew she was safe, but then I didn't have to. My anxiety didn't get all the way high as it has before with situations like this. 7 is actually pretty good compared to what it had been before. And then you not allowing me to, you disrupting my need for compulsions for the check-ins really helped. And so then by the time I did see her, I was like, okay, that was okay. And then that was not the only time that she went out of my sight.
No, but I will say
on the next several days.
If I wanted to push that ERP with you, because that's what it was.
Did we really want to?
Well, we could have, but I could have had her stay away longer.
Wouldn't that have been just how exciting?
Like another 5 or 10 minutes.
Ew.
And I know your anxiety would have continued to rise and rise. But once again, we talk about a time and a place.
Yep.
When we're in a crowded area on the pier, there's hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the time or place to have you have a full-blown panic attack.
Sure. I would agree with that.
So, those are certain things that I think about.
As this, and also an important thought to have as the spouse of someone currently going through ERP, treatment as I am. And treatment, and you're going through as my spouse and as Avery's father too. Yeah. And so you are having to think about things a little bit in a different way or from a different lens than even Avery and I do, being the ones that are, having the exposures and experiencing that anxiety and, not engaging in the compulsions that we want to so badly. So it really does, it really is a team effort. And it really, our treatment and our success is absolutely integral to you being part of it with us.
To give you those exposures outside of
and
the
to
therapist office.
On top of it and say, and finding the exposures, but then also getting us through them and on the other side of them. And then making sure that, like you said, is it the appropriate time and place? Is this the appropriate thing to do for ERP. Like you're always thinking about that, and you've become a real expert in the area. And I think that that's what people listening to us now too can really benefit from, especially those who have loved ones with OCD, is you can come up with ways to help.
Yeah. It's got to be creative.
Yeah.
And know what like I know what you struggle with. I know what our daughter struggles with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I can become creative with different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and some of them are in conjunction with our therapist, like, you know, the road trip you driving up north by yourself, and you know that's not something I necessarily thought about.
Yes.
You know, but you did that journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like she's thinking about the bigger stuff for you.
Absolutely.
And I think about the stuff that can be in the moment.
Sure.
You know, which is good.
And that's, again, it's a team effort. Our therapist has also been incredibly integral in my success, in Avery's success, in Marc being able to have this new lease on life that he's had now, our son as well. And it wasn't, and like I said, it was not the only time that she was out of our sight. It was the first time on the 10-day trip. I also will say that was the one and only time I felt my anxiety go that high. There were other times that we didn't have her in our sight, and I was pretty okay. I was managing it pretty well.
There was one night, you know, as we were driving up the coast, there's one night that she didn't want to go out to dinner. So we got her food and we allowed her to stay in the hotel room by herself. And then you and I went
to dinner. Yeah.
And that in the past would have been a big piece.
It's a whole new lease on life for all of us.
Yeah. You know, and the one thing that you made sure that she did was to lock the hotel door.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most hotel doors, you have to have a key.
Right. And again, I think that there's the way that my brain works now is because I can be more present. I recognize those things that are like safety measures that all parents of teenagers think about or need to take into account versus the absolute terror that I was feeling before when we would do certain things like that. I had one other moment.
Yep.
Once we got all the way up to Seattle, where I didn't see her and my suds went back up.
And I recognized that really quickly.
Yep. And then I wanted to engage in the compulsions again and check in with you to make sure she's okay and ask you all the questions. And we didn't get there.
Because once again, at that time, I don't think she had her phone on her either. I think you were carrying it in your purse.
I was carrying it in my purse. Yep. And didn't even realize I had her phone.
But I will say she was only like 2 people ahead of us. She just happened to go in front of somebody.
Okay. Yes, we know. You're right. But she wasn't there in my sight.
Yeah.
And that was the only other moment I felt like my suds could have gotten higher than maybe a 3 or 4. And then it had to come back down. And then by the end of the trip, I actually felt much more confident. And I felt like I didn't allow the unknown and the uncertainty of things to push me down so hard like it's done all my life to really embrace being able to have an enjoyable time on this trip.
Like, I'll give you an example. I mean, some of the towns we stopped in were small. Like Coos Bay it's a small town. It's a fishing town. And, you know, they don't have a lot of options as far as hotels and stuff. And, you know, the one we picked was a ground floor and the sliding door opened up to the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And when we pulled up to the hotel, you're like, oh no, we're not staying here. Because all of the doors that we could see were outside. The doors going into the room were on the outside, exposed to the you know, and you think about that more as like a safety thing.
And
but
in my
for
head,
me, I'm like, yeah, it's not a big deal.
And in my head, it's unsafe. And if something's unsafe, somebody will die.
Yeah.
But OCD and the brain really, when I start to think about this and start to say it out loud like we do on this podcast, it can really do some crazy things to you.
Well, I mean, it lies to you all the time.
It does. And it really, now that I see it from a different lens, the treatment version of the treatment lens of it all, it's so hard to think about the way that I used to live. And I'm so glad that I have had this opportunity to get treatment. I'm so glad that I've embraced it the way that I have. I'm so glad that you have been my support in all of this, and our therapist as well. I couldn't have done it without either one of you. I'm so grateful for, I've said it again, I'm going to say it again, for this new lease on life, because that is essentially what it is. And when you go on a trip the way we just did, and you feel so differently about it in all the positive ways, it impacts you even more.
Like we went to the Air Museum in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And I mean, at this point, she's with her friend. We've met her parents. We're all hanging out together, all 6 of us. And, we're walking around the Air Museum. And at one point, the girls are off together. Uh-huh. Her parents are off together. We're off together. But you are still present in the moment.
With you.
With me.
Yeah.
Us looking at the airplanes, talking about them. Yep. There was a part of the museum where they had all the different, stewardess outfits and flight attendant outfits and over the history of different airlines. But you were present in that, and you were thinking
and
about, that Miles would have really liked this, versus worrying about where's Avery at in this large complex. Mm-hmm. That would never have happened before.
No, I know that. No, those were some moments that I take away and have some pride for myself and for how far I've come, knowing that those moments did not affect me as negatively as they would have before. And that the intrusive thoughts and the compulsions don't have to win.
Yeah. Which is huge. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we went to the Space Needle, and that was an enjoyable time. And the girls got away from your site too. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Avery was excellent at providing me with the ERP.
Yep. Throughout a lot of the trip.
Yeah.
And there was even a point in Astoria where she didn't want to go out and get a bite to eat. And so we got her food in again. Mm-hmm. And you and I mean, that was, at that point, I knew you were going to be good to go.
Yeah.
But when you don't know towns and stuff, you ask people, hey, what's good food? And,
sure.
They had talked about a brewery. So we went to that brewery, but the outside of it did not look like anything like the inside. And you weren't sure about the actual brewery.
No, because I let my fear and my intrusive thoughts get to me again. I let the idea of the uncertainty wanting to hold me back again and be like, nope, sorry, can't do this. But instead, I'm pushing through that.
Yeah. And that's what the reason why I brought that one up is because you did push through it. We opened up the door into the restaurant, and it was
a beautiful little restaurant on the water.
Columbia River, and
it
we
was
could see
gorgeous.
the boats, and
and it was yummy food. It was really nice. Yeah, it was great.
Some good beer, and it was a really enjoyable time. We actually could have a conversation.
Yep. And I felt that presence with you then too. Yeah.
And the only reason why I say those things is because if you're listening to this and you have a spouse that's going through, that has OCD and hasn't started treatment or is thinking about it, what freedoms you gain from it it's unmeasurable. But one of the things you have to do is put in the effort, because I do know that it has not been easy for you.
No. Anybody
trying to make a change, it's very difficult. It's almost like an addiction.
It becomes that. And we've talked about this phrase before too, which is that you really have to be prepared to commit to the exhaustion, because it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
It gets tiring. It gets to the point where you just want to bail and, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But if you just go that one next step, it's like a hurdle you jump over, and then it gets easier, and it's so much better on the other side. but you have to be able to commit to being exhausted. And it works best if you can find someone, in this case, I have you, babe, that commits to that exhaustion with me and allows for that growth and that healing to take place.
There was even one of the beaches we stopped at. And usually in the past, if it was something that you didn't feel comfortable doing, you would have shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
You actually hard charged it through the rocks, made it through it, got down to the water. Avery wanted to see some of the tide pools and stuff, but with the rock, with the coral was more slippery, type of thing. So that when you didn't want to go on, you stayed on the beach. But her and I went and we looked around and stuff, where before you would have been like eagle eye.
And nobody's going because it didn't feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah. And you would have been eagle eye if we did go, and you would have said something or called or, to make sure that.
Or I would have let my anxiety get the panic would have set in, and then the other emotions kind of follow suit, and then no one's having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And I recall other trips that we've taken where that has happened, and I'm beyond grateful. I can't even put it into words that this was such a different caliber of trip. And I foresee the next one now being very similar, and the next one being similar. And it is such a exciting, I could start happy tear crying right now because it's so exciting. I'm excited for what life brings next, despite how uncertain it is. And that is something that I have never, ever, ever felt before.
And I know right now we're sitting here, we're talking about the trip and we're talking about some of the ERP and stuff, but for us, it was such it was a big test for me. And you and I had talked about it before us going. Like, I was nervous, and how is this actually going to turn out? And you were a little nervous too, like how my mental compulsion's going to, wander and do their thing. And so after the first night, it was kind of like, okay, we're good. It's going to be good. And even after the first night that Avery stayed in the hotel, while we went and, had dinner, it was like, oh, this is a very different trip. You were present. You were having fun. The three of us were laughing.
Yep.
We're actually enjoying the time. And it was like, okay.
Yeah.
And we even went to the redwoods.
Yes.
And I stop and I pull in this place. It's a dirt road, and it was a 3-mile loop. And in the past, you would never have allowed us to do that, or if you did,
the panic would have sent in.
The panic would have stepped in, and you would have had asked me 28 different questions along the 3-mile loop. Are we okay? What's going to happen? What if this happens? What if that happens? Or, you would have been just coming out of your skin, where that 3-mile loop, you actually enjoyed being in the redwoods.
I know. It was unlike anything I had experienced before, the whole trip, being that I didn't feel the same that I have been feeling for way too freaking long. And
a road trip is kind of like a bunch of little surprises along the way. And you don't like surprises.
I hate surprises.
And most people with OCD hate surprises as well.
I, again, want the stats on that. If anyone has that, please connect with us and let me know.
Because
would love to get some information on that. Yeah.
You don't like surprises. Like that loop would have been it was a big surprise, like it was an unknown, and you did it. And Avery absolutely loved it. She wants to live there. Yep. Which she can't because it's a national park, but she would.
There are obstacles,
Yeah. So, I felt this trip was, out of our 22 years,
this was the best trip we've ever had.
Yes.
I'm sad our son missed it with us, because this would have been a really fun one for him to have gone on with us too, given the nature of it and how different it felt. But But
we got more.
We do. We have a lot more. And he's growing up and kind of spreading his wings too, which is appropriate and as he should be. And I didn't think about, or I guess I did think about it, that would I be more worried about leaving Miles behind? Would I be more worried about Avery leaving my sight? Either way, they're out of my sight and oh my gosh, they're going to die. And surprisingly, I didn't feel that much at all. A little. But I managed through it without compulsing. So it was successful and a lot of fun. And I'm really glad we went.
Now I feel more comfortable to do bigger.
Yeah, as do I.
Adventures.
Yeah, as do I.
You know, I mean, you were even willing to go on a sailboat in Seattle.
I was. That's how much I love you.
Well, it was a big boat, though. It was 75 feet.
Doesn't matter.
So, you know, we didn't do it, though.
I understand.
But
I would have.
Other people.
I would have done it.
We didn't know the other people and if they would want to do that or not. Not everybody wants to go sailing on a sailboat.
I understand, but I would have done it for you, and that's something big for me too, because the panic would have set in, and it's exhausting to think about, and so now, without that element of it, just feels good.
I even think about some of our past trips, like if you had the ERP early on in our marriage and stuff, what would some of our other trips have been like?
I know.
And it's not even like, I think about like our honeymoon and some of the other smaller trips that we did when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have recognized any OCD components in those trips.
Because neither one of us realized that that's what was happening.
But were you doing those things during those trips? We didn't have kids at that time, so there was less things to worry about.
No, I was because it was me. Yeah. I was the focus of, if I do this, I'll die. If I do this, I'll die.
And we were together all the time, and it was just you and I.
So I think there was a lot of checking in and a lot of reassurance seeking that you didn't catch as OCD, that I didn't catch as OCD. And a lot of, are you sure this is okay? Do you think this will be all right?
And we're new in our marriage and everything too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You know,
exactly. And there's just
blinded by the love.
Oh boy, now we're really dating ourselves now. Oh boy. It was a good trip, and it was a good opportunity to spread. Well, it was a good opportunity to try more ERP in a different way than we've done it so far. And I think it really helped. And it was really to our benefit that we did that.
Even the last day of our trip, you know, you were awake and I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning. Because once again, your hotel beds are not like your own bed. You don't sleep as well. And I was like, woke up and we had another day of just driving. We weren't going to stop and see anything. And I told you, I'm like, hey, you want to just drive back home? Mm-hmm. Which was like a 13.5-hour drive. Mm-hmm. And in the past, you would have said, oh, that's too much. You couldn't do that, but we did it. We packed up the car really quick. We jumped in it and
we did it.
Yeah. So it was a great trip.
It was. It really was. And I'm happy with the way it turned out. And I'm happy with what we were able to do on that trip. So that was really good. I did want to segue a little into a different topic just because I think it's really important and I don't want it to get away from us where we don't talk about it. Which is that because I've discussed this, I have some physical manifestations of OCD, and some of that comes with checking in and getting reassurance from other people. But a lot of what my OCD comes down to are mental compulsions. And that's why, again, it was hidden. And I do a lot of ruminating. And I know on a previous episode, just a recent episode, I talked about how I had to have my own accountability for my mental compulsions, which I have also been working really, really diligently at. And one of the ways, and I hope that I explain this correctly, and I think this is a topic that's definitely worth some more discussion because it is one of the hardest for me to break because I don't necessarily have Marc's full.
I can't see it.
Yeah. If you can't see it and you don't know that I'm doing it, you can't kind of step in and help me with those compulsions. And so I let it get away from me. And so one of the ways that with my therapist, we've talked about working through the mental compulsions, the ERP for that is basically you have to kind of say the opposite of what my compulsion is, if that makes sense. So for example, if I have a compulsion where I don't feel like I've left a conversation with someone, whether it was one of our previous employees or one of our kids or a stranger on the street, if I don't feel like I've left that conversation just right and I have this need to go back and check in with that person, say something else to that person, text them, etc. If I don't feel like I've left it just right, I will have to, part of it would be I would do a compulsion as of that nature, or I would say, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm all right. You're all right. And this was very ritualized for me. And I would have to go through this very structured dialogue in my head to tell myself that I was okay, to calm myself down, to bring myself down. And it was, again, I had to do it in order to feel okay. And now I go, okay, so maybe I didn't leave that conversation feeling just right. Are they going to be mad at me? Are they going to hate me? Maybe. They might. Yeah, they will. And I have to sit in that. And that's the discomfort that I have to sit in, because that's the thought that disrupts the previous compulsion that I've had, the ritualized dialogue. It interrupts it. And so then I have to sit with that discomfort and wait for that anxiety to go down on its own. And that has been, very honestly with everyone, one of the most challenging parts of my journey, is disrupting my own mental compulsions and not allowing myself to engage in them, because I can't do it with other people. Like, it has to be me.
Yeah, it's something I cannot see. I can't see her doing it. It's undercover.
It's just a loop in my brain. It's a loop in my brain that never stops. And the need for that ritualized dialogue, or those ritualized comments that I have to make to myself every time I feel like I've left a conversation not feeling just right, took up so much of my time, energy, brain, all of it. And now I have this strategy, which I essentially, maybe they will. Maybe they will dislike me. Maybe I did say that wrong.
Maybe I will die.
Maybe I will die. Oof. Ugh. Anyway, it's fine. But I have to disrupt my own mental compulsions. And that's how I've done it. And that's the way that Marc and I have talked about the best way for me to do that. And my therapist and I have talked extensively about that's the best way for me to do that, is I have to find some way to disrupt the mental compulsion. And I hope that I'm doing that strategy justice by explaining it the way that I am, because that's what I've been doing. And that does tend to help. And it allows me to sit in that uncertainty. And
your anxiety.
And my anxiety goes up, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do any more mental compulsions. I can't tell myself I'm okay. I can't check back in with that person. So now I just have to sit here and I have to sit here and realize I'm uncomfortable or I'm uncertain. And while that brings my anxiety up, then I have to let myself just come down. Now, I have gotten some practice with this. I have to say, I have been really hoping and trying to embrace as many opportunities as I can to engage in this particular strategy so that I can break it. And hopefully it's working. I feel like it is. I don't live in my head as much.
You don't ask me about different things really anymore, because I think you are.
Meaning, like what would I ask you?
You would ask me like, well, what do you think about this conversation? Do you think I ended it well?
Yeah.
Did it? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't ask me those things anymore.
I'd have to have you read all my text messages and my emails before I would send them.
So those are, but those are things that I could see, but those are mental compulsions too that I wouldn't necessarily be able to see. Like I sent it and, oh my goodness, that wasn't right. That wasn't right. You would go through that and you would ask me, and then you would show it to me like, this is what I sent. Do you think this was okay? You don't do that anymore.
No, because we've disrupted that checking in reassurance cycle with the strategies we've put into place. And so now I have to take it upon myself to disrupt the cycle of mental compulsions. And I really embrace the opportunities when they come up. It's hard. And sometimes I get caught in the loop and I don't even realize it. And then
it's like somebody daydreaming.
But yeah, it kind of is. But it's just this constant loop. And in my head, and it's always worry and panic. And I can happily say again, I don't live as much like that. And even though I still get caught in those moments, I do try to do better now. And I know what those moments are, and I know where it's coming from.
It's taking you catch it a lot quicker too. When you and I talk about it, something like one of them, after the fact, like you were at the pool and the lady and you did it 3 times without noticing it, but you noticed it then and you stopped. Like those are getting the amount of time. The amount of time you're catching it is reducing. You still might be doing it, but you're reducing the amount of times you're
and in that case it's so interesting because I suppose you're right, the compulsion really starts with the need to replay the conversation in my head, and then I go into this mental ritualized dialogue of, no, I'm okay, I'm all right, because this is what I said and everything's fine, and if it's not, then that's it's okay, it's going to be fine, it'll be all right. And now I go, well, maybe it isn't.
I mean, you're playing a story in your head.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yes.
And you have to stop that.
Yes.
Story, which you're doing a lot better with.
I think so. I did feel like it was a nice time today on this episode again to revisit the mental compulsions. And I think it's worth even more conversation because it really is the hidden challenge of OCD and how so many people can live with OCD for so long without even recognizing it.
Because OCD is more than just that hand washing, or they could be tapping, like Avery does tapping, and she's got to touch the doorknob so many times, and like those are physical OCD aspects. But there are so many mental ones too that we cannot see.
Right.
A therapist cannot see.
Exactly.
You gotta have to kind of tell on yourself. And that's like where you and I go to therapy. There would be times that I would say something that would trigger like, oh, maybe this is an OCD thing for a therapist. And
Oh, 100%.
And now I kind of look out for some of those things too.
Yep.
And I look at it more like for Avery too. I think both you and I do too.
We do.
With her.
We do.
Is that a mental compulsion, or, is she doing something that we don't necessarily see or try to see it?
Which is why I think podcasts like ours and others that we listen to and enjoy because we're a part of this community are so important to raise awareness of OCD, to talk about the different types of OCD, to discuss both sides. For example, I have OCD, Marc doesn't, but he has been supporting me in this journey. And that's a really big deal and a really big part of what this community could grow into is the support for those who have OCD. And we're just continuing to be so grateful for our listeners, for the episodes that we've done so far, certainly for our own journey and being able to share it and hoping that it impacts other people in a positive way.
Yep. So if you are a regular listener, please follow with whatever platform you're on, so you keep getting our podcasts on a regular basis. We like to, support you as well if you are a regular follower. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
If you know anybody that can benefit, share our episode with them. And let them know, hey, look, this is more than just you or, your loved one, other people are going through it too. And hopefully if you are listening or a regular listener, that some of the things that we have been saying are like, oh yeah, you can resonate with you, so we do appreciate that. We know there are people that are out there that are regular listeners because every time I look, the day we drop it, there's 2 or 3 people that have already listened to our episode. And, I drop it pretty early for us. I drop it 2:00 in the morning, so by the time I wake up, there's already several listeners to the episode. So we do appreciate you if you're those early morning people.
We absolutely do. And we're honored that you're out there listening to our story and our journey. And again, we just want to be a part of this community to raise awareness for what OCD is and what it can do, and being on the other side of an ERP journey. So thank you again, everyone, for living uncertain with us every day.
And have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode and living uncertain with us. We are not therapists, and this podcast is intended to provide information and support. It should not replace traditional means of seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. If you like this episode or would like to hear more, please like, subscribe, or share with someone you think may benefit. Here at Living Uncertain, we're building a community of support. If you and your significant other would like to share your story, we would love to have you on the podcast. Please click on the link in the episode description and fill out the interest form.